Near mint condition, the home of collected editions. Oh my gosh, look at that panel of Batman. You have the Absolute, you have the Deluxe. DC Comics firing on all cylinders.
Superheroes have been flying with us and around us since 1938, but what happens when you not only mix in real-world events with a completely furnished universe, but also take a deep dive and an introspective look at what these heroes symbolize and what they mean to us individually, personally, and as a whole as a society? This is a look at the brand new edition of the Absolute DC, the New Frontier hardcover, and you are watching Near Mint Condition. What's up, everybody? My name is Dom of X, Near Mint Condition Manager and ComicReleases.com Associate Editor. We're going to be taking a look again at the edition, the brand new edition of the Absolute DC, the New Frontier hardcover. This is a look at the front of the book, an exquisite cover, of course, done by Darwyn Cooke as well. All of these stories are done here by Darwyn Cooke. This is a look at the spine of the title with Green Lantern jumping up from underneath. This is the spine of the slipcase, just to be a tad bit more specific. Absolute DC, the New Frontier, still all Darwyn Cooke, but this time we do have the DC Bullet logo on it. A nice touch and furnish. And on the backhand side, of course, another amazingly painted Darwyn Cooke cover featuring Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Arrow, The Flash, Martian Manhunter, Adam Strange, Batman, Robin, Mr. Blackhawk, and Aquaman. All of these amazing heroes. You even got another character here at the bottom that you will see inside of the book. Right, if we could just ignore the challengers in the background, or the challengers of the unknown, let's go ahead and slip the book out of its slipcase and take it out from here. Whew. All right, let's go ahead and separate these two and just look at the inside of the book itself. Here you can see the front of the hardcover. This is one of my favorite textures that I have ever felt on a hardcover. I have never had the opportunity to look at this book or know anybody who has owned it, at least physically, in the area around me. So feeling this for the first time, it's a very, very textile, encyclopedic look. This reminds me of the same materials that my library's encyclopedias would use, my college encyclopedias that they would use. So very, very awesome to feel and see there. This is a look at the spine. This time we do have Diana, of course, in the middle of it, as it is a wraparound cover with Absolute DC, the New Frontier. Black Bullet logo here on the bottom. If I could just push it just a little bit further. So DC Bullet logo, this time in black instead of the semi-transparent one as we saw on the slipcase. And then here's a look at the back. Challengers of the Unknown, Adam Strange, Dr. Fate, Our Man. Here it is in its full wraparound glory. If I can even just extend it just a little tiny bit. Don't want to KO the book, but this is a look at the full scope of the cover. And if I push it just back a little bit, you can see the DC Bullet logo again on the bottom. Don't want it falling off the edge of the table, but here it is in all of its full encased glory. This is the same cover that they have used for the trade paperbacks and also the DC Black Label edition, which is essentially, yes, this book, all encased nicely. Additionally, along with this, they do have one of these tiny little pamphlets that are included that have the ISBN. Of course, the comic shop or whatever retailer that you guys order this from will have this. Every single one of these Absolutes comes along with this, so you're going to be getting it, and I will keep it because I am a weirdo just like that. Now, if we take a look at the brand new printing versus the old one, and just look at the slipcase, there is no difference between the old ones or the new ones. It just really is the DC logo that is different, and some people will, I'm sure, have cases with that where it is the mismatching logos on the shelves, as DC has routinely changed their logos in and out. You do have the back here. So there is a difference between the 15th anniversary edition and this one, but that really is just a logo. Here's a look at the side. Here's a look at the back again. And then once again, just real quick, look at the front of the main hardcover. A look at the side, or the spine, and then a look here at the back. Okay, enough of me rambling. Let's go ahead and talk about one of, if not the greatest, Silver Age homage of all time. All right, fellas, let's go ahead and take a look at the inside of this Absolute. Here on the front end sheets, we do have Kal-El punching Bruce Wayne into oblivion. And on the backhand, we do have a shot of the heroes looking at the horizon. These pieces end up being some of my favorite compositions ever. Doesn't matter if it was an art published in 1964 or if it's the Infinite Frontier cover. This reminds me of Infinite Frontier. And honestly, I might have to look back, but I do believe that Joshua Williamson, Daniel Sampere, and everybody else who worked on Infinite Frontier at the time must have looked at this as some inspiration, because it does have a lot of the same vibes, at least for that DC relaunch, as this specifically. So 2021, we are still getting inspiration from DC The New Frontier by Darwyn Cooke. But enough about that. In the book, as I flip back to it, this is a 528 pager, so a big one. This also collects the New Frontier and also the 6-issue series, and also the Justice League The New Frontier special. So again, the end sheets. Here is a look at the front cover. Hal Jordan's airplane on the left with a star from the Air Force on the left hand as well, or Ferris aircraft. On the right hand side is a look at the cover page with Green Lantern soaring, and yes, this is his story. On the left-hand side, I'll probably have a comparison between both printings somewhere, so you guys can at least see what the differences are between all of this. This is the look at the credits page, at least for the creators who have worked on this book. Of course, Darwyn Cooke being the main inspiration and man behind it, as he did do the script, and he also did the art for it as well. We do have guest artists Jay Bone, David Bullock, and Michael Cho on here. And somewhere in the afterword, Darwyn Cooke does talk about how important all of those creators were in assembling the stories from Solo Issue number 5, and again, also the New Frontier special. Dave Stewart, who absolutely just pops off. Eisner Award-winning colorist Dave Stewart just absolutely crushes it on every single page. And Jared K. Fletcher, who you might know from Batman, or at least 2000s Batman, being the main letterer. And of course, the Superman creator credits as appropriated here. On this is a table of contents as well. If I can move my hand, you can see that we do have all of these pages here, and they do actually mark them, as you will see flipping through the book. So you won't get lost in terms of, if you are trying to look for something, you won't have any issues along with finding that. I will also say that for the New Frontier specifically, there are no cover breaks or page breaks. All of the covers are listed in the back. So think of it as a Jonathan Hickman or Robert Kirkman reading type experience. You are going from issues 1 through 6 of the New Frontier with no breaks, no in-betweens. You are going from story to story to story to story without any skippage. On the left-hand side, you will see the editorial information, publishing information, printing information, and everything else alike, copyright material information, etc., etc., etc. This book was published in Malaysia, believe it or not. I had to actually go ahead and text my friend over in Malaysia, and I said, you guys print stuff? One of my best buds lives in Malaysia. He has I remember asking him if he had read New Frontier before, and he told me that it's still on his list, as books are a lot more expensive over there, but that's a different story for a different time. This is an introduction by Paul Levitz in 2004. Paul Levitz, if you do not know or do not know who he is, he used to be the main publisher and the main head honcho over at DC, also president before he stepped down, and Diane Nelson, if I recall correctly, took over in 2010. And this is really his perspective on not only what this story means to him, but just the overall themes that he has found in this book that Darwyn Cooke encompasses and instills into this story. The ideas of heroism and the ideas of, well, we've had superheroes walking on this planet and flying on this planet since 1938. This is a wonderful look at the freedom that he exercised in the artistry and the script and everything else that you could see that Cooke poured his love into. Without further ado, let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible, which might not be successful because some of these story beats, you will see them in the book as I flip through them. Man, I am so thrilled to talk about this. We're starting off with Dinosaur Island. We are starting off in a world that Peter J. Tomasi has explored time and time again. It feels like every single one of his runs ends up on Dinosaur Island. So when I read this for the first time, this was back in 2019, I said, does Dinosaur Island happen or so often to host a lot of stories, or maybe it's just an island thing? But anyways, we're kicking it off with Dinosaur Island, and we find out that, well, we're in a post-World War II setting, so we are going to be firmly seated in the first 15 years or so of the Cold War. Yes, the Cold War that pitted the Warsaw Pact and NATO against each other, or the United Nations against each other, if you will. Communism versus democracy and all of that other jazz. But in this post-World War II world, we are enlisted to a group called the Losers, who are given this mission to seek out this island and figure out, well, what the heck is going on over there? And specifically, is there a monster, or is there something in this island that might happen to have some troubles later on? And that island is going to be very, very, very important as the story goes on. And of course, we do need an introduction to the antagonist at some point, right? All superhero stories have an antagonist, whether we do mark or believe it or not. But the beauty of this specific book is that every single story is diced up into certain chapters. These chapters focus on different parts of the title and different parts of the story, and they are broken up specifically into sections so that we are not so lost as we move from one beat to another. So again, like I was saying, in this post-World War II world, we're introduced to the Losers. We're also introduced to a crowd of superheroes, a band of superheroes, as we go on and move on to different settings. We are introduced sequentially to each superhero as they first appeared in DC Comics. So, for example, Barry Allen gets struck by lightning in the pages of The Flash, and we don't see him being The Flash until the years that he actually comes across as Flash. But really, we also do find out that superheroes have been unfortunately banned by the US government because, well, what are we supposed to do? We have nuclear weapons now. Everybody has the power to harness these weapons of mass destruction. And what worse for it would a country have to do to, well, you have to destabilize or break up certain superheroes. So, for example, the Justice Society of America, who we've already seen come across in the early 40s through the pages of All-Star Comics, well, they are decommissioned. They are put out of their spots. We also see the same for plenty of other superheroes as well. So we are seeing different characters pop up in sort of different times as the series moves along. We're also introduced to a bevy of characters that we are already probably familiar with, but in different settings. What this book actually tries to attempt, and I believe that it successfully does, is integrate real world events as they happen year by year into the pages of DC Comics. So, for example, the Red Scare is very, very much in play with Senator McCarthy. If you guys are familiar with that at all, it is very much in play in this book, but the characters necessarily aren't the communists that people, I guess, made him out to be in the late 40s, 50s, etc. And the same goes, you have to find ways to replace that with actual real-world heroes, or the real-world DC superheroes in this specific title. We are introduced to Lois Lane in The Thralls of South Korea. She is still a winning journalist, and she and Jimmy Olsen are going to find certain things. But we're also introduced to other superheroes, or people who will eventually be superheroes, like Hal Jordan, who is very much in line with the military, and he has to make throat-cutting decisions. There is a spot in that Korean War chapter where he is faced with a decision that could actually alter the course of his life. And unfortunately for Hal, it ends up being the thing that it will come into play. What happens to him in South Korea eventually comes into play, and it also happens, or this story anyways, also happens to firmly revolve around him. A lot of it is through willpower. A lot of it is through the setting of, well, there's going to be trauma, and yes, you have to, there are certain ways that Darwyn Cooke finds ways to integrate these stories with the rest of the events that are happening here. So can you tell Hal Jordan in a setting where before he becomes Green Lantern, it makes sense not only with the rest of the book, but also with the rest of world history. We're also introduced to plenty of other superheroes here in the thralls and mindsteads. Wonder Woman, for example, is working with the Eisenhower administration from 1953 to 1961 as a peacebreaker, and also being thrown into what would stem into the Vietnam War. At this point, it is a small conflict, but we do get introduced to a couple of people who might be associated with the Viet Cong, for example. The same goes for, oh wait, there's a Batman running around, and there are characters in such as Superman who are also being thrown into the wind here. What also is a core part of this book are also all of these Silver Age characters. When people tell me like, oh, like, man, I really wish that they had a Challengers of the Unknown book, or I really wish that Rick Flag, was back in some retrospect. Well, this is where you will find them. The Challengers of the Unknown introduction might be one of my favorite introductions just overall in this story, specifically with the way that they use old film to introduce them and the way that colors are thrown in here as well. Darwyn Cooke just find ways to place characters in the midst of what they are actually going through in the 50s, and also finding ways to say, hey, like, there might be a new team member, and that team member organically comes about as the story moves along. And the same goes with the Flash. You have Barry Allen, who is also introduced to us in the middle pages of this book. And we also get introduced to core parts of Coast City, Central City, Gotham City as Batman is fighting criminals. You've got Wildcat, who is running amok, and he's still the boxing Ted Grant that we all know and love. I still love seeing those whims of Ted being there, and also cameos too, where characters will pop up that you might be going like, oh my gosh, is that Oliver Queen? Is he talking to Dinah? Like, you have specific characters who are thrown into the wind, and for good reason too. But overall, there are, I think, two beats to the story that are important when it comes to the overall plot of this book. You have the not only do you have the ongoing story of Hal Jordan and him eventually becoming Green Lantern, which is, I think, arguably the most important thread of this book. We're also introduced to John Jones, and early on in the story, we find out that there has been a random Martian who has somehow crashed onto Earth, and he needs to find a way to integrate himself into society. Well, what better way to do that than to have a shapeshifter who can change at a whim at every single vantage point, and have him figure out how to use his life in a positive manner? The problem is, like I was mentioning earlier with the Red Scare, John Jones is not exactly I'll just say that sometimes there is a specific plot thread in this book where everything comes to a head and people find out, wait, you're the Martians that we've been hunting for. So in this story, instead of, not that there's not communist hunting, but instead of the primary focus of the Red Scare being on the hunt down against communism, there is the Red Scare, or the Martian Scare, against invaders from another planet. And it wouldn't be so outlandish to think so if we didn't have a princess who had super strength and was from another island. It wouldn't be if we didn't have a Superman flying around. It wouldn't be if we had a Batman or a person who wears a bat suit and suddenly beats up a lot of people, and maybe there's something else to it. But this all comes to a head in the specific last parts of this book. The second half of New Frontier is really where I think things start to get going along as I'm flipping through the pages of Hal Jordan learning to be Green Lantern, and everything in this book has primordial consequences. Every single thread leads to one break or another. You have the Challengers of the Unknown, again, who are major parts of the story, and Rick Flag, who we're introduced to early on, also still has quite a bit of a role to play when it comes to all of this. So it's not just an over-glorified cameo fest, more so that it is Darwyn Cooke threading every single needle carefully to weave something that makes sense with the rest of everything else that's going on inside of the story. And the same thing goes too once we get introduced to the proper Silver Age Aquaman. Yes, that Aquaman, not Adam Waterman, but the actual person who becomes Arthur Curry. This book continues to roll along and in its threads. We also get characters who are very, very mixed in their emotions, and do they want to continue the superhero thing? Sometimes these questions are thrown up because, yes, the government isn't exactly on their side. We also have some historical cameos from President Eisenhower, and also important newscast figures like Walter Cronkite being important parts of the story. And characters such as John Henry, who we get introduced, might not be the characters who you immediately think they are. The themes, though, are by far the most important of the book, and honestly why this book is so important to DC history. Because yes, this is really Darwyn Cooke weaving Silver Age DC as it is rolling along in true and real time. But you wouldn't get it if you didn't have this overall sense, or just him asking the question of, why do we even bother with superheroes? Why do we even bother with the concept of people in tights running around, flying around, and beating up bad guys? This book, I think, attempts to answer why we read these tales in the first place. What is at the core of the superhero that just makes them so appealing to us as human beings? To people, I think that when we try to look for something higher, when we look at something and say, wait, why, the Spectre has all of these primordial and different powers. We look at Martian Manhunter and the fact that he can pretty much do everything except be near a birthday cake. We look at all of these guys because of the inspirations that they are to us. Their stories are so important. Their contributions to society, both as symbolic and as physical as they are, there is a reason to that. There is a fighting chance for so many different people because we have all of these heroes that inspire us to be the best that we can be. And I truly believe that that is the core of why the New Frontier is a masterpiece and why it should work for almost everybody who reads it. If this was just an over-glorified cameo fest, I don't think that it would be as celebrated as it is today. Be as it may, I love Darwyn Cooke, and I do think that this absolute just not only blows up all the spectacular things about his art, but looking at it through the lens of something like 40s through 60s America, where life might not have been as free as it was. And to find ways to inspire people, whether it's through a riveting speech, whether it's through the selfless acts of Wonder Woman, whether it's through something else that is deep inside the core of this book, you're going to find it because of just who these characters are. And when you go through and flip through and see the beauty and the tail ends of just what Cooke manages to do with this title, it's absolutely thrilling. And in every single way, this book has not aged. As we go through the DC cover gallery, I will quickly say that I read this book first 6 years ago, when I had sort of less of a grasp on the DC universe as I do now. But after reading through this again 6 years later and having gone through all of the DC finest that I have read through so far, I have such a wider appreciation, not only for Cooke trying to tackle on the issues that he does in this book, but also now the importance of why the DC superhero is so fundamentally important to society as a global whole. And that really is why I do believe New Frontier should be read by everybody and should be read by you specifically. If you are watching, if you have not yet, this is a 10 out of 10 recommendation for me. We also do have a bunch of extras in this book, including a whole set of annotations. Darwyn Cooke's genius doesn't just extend to the pages themselves, but he went down, dedicated, and looked through the lot, and we have some glorious notes on not only his thought process through some of the instances of the panels, he also manages to credit Dave Stewart or any one of his other collaborators if they did something specifically well. We also have page by page numbers, so if you turn to that page, you will be able to see what specifically that they did on the panel that they loved. For instance, one of my favorites, I can't remember if it's here, but he does credit Dave Stewart in that, he makes that page, and me seeing that just has even more of appreciation for me as I go through it. Also included in this is a sketchbook. This sketchbook was also included, if I do recall correctly, in the DC Black Label edition. They made a Black Label trade paperback edition of this that I don't believe is in print, but you can read it if you have DC Universe Ultra, or Infinite Ultra, I should say. A look at Cobalt, Black Canary, all the different faces that they have gone through here. Challengers of the Unknown, I still really, really love how important they were to the overall parts of the story, and also one of the inflection points in the story that forces us to look differently at what's going on in the pages of this book. You also see some process pages here, some inspiration for some of the panels, and my personal favorite, honestly, the thought and process design on Wonder Woman. I always love seeing different artists interpret how Diana should look, just overall as a character and also with her costume. So seeing the thought process behind this and also finding out that Darwyn Cooke was most proud of his design of Wonder Woman makes me happy. Here was also a look behind the scenes and overall just how Darwyn Cooke, well, when he made this specific title, and also I think just for every single book, he thumbnails everything. Very much like an animation studio would or an animator would for any single animated process. This is something that I learned in the 2 animation classes that I took at a community college over the summer. When we had to do certain animations or design certain things, we would always, and I mean this, always, whether it's a sketchbook or on the board, have to detail everything like, okay, this is what we're going to be doing specifically in this scene. And honestly, it's really cool that, well, not only was Darwyn Cooke an animator, but that his process also requires him to, thumbnail and sketch his animations as well. You also have some more notes over here. And also him telling Dave Stewart, hey, I want a silver suit on Hal Jordan. One of my favorite panels in that book, by the way. Same here goes. We also have some of the process pages. And here on the right-hand side, without the colors, obviously, the grain right before the colors are introduced. It's the same cover as the front of the slipcase. Here are some of the looks of the trade paperbacks over the years. And we also do have action figures done with credited parts from Darwyn Cooke and sketched in notes as well. And also the after effects of New Frontier included people and airlines actually using this for their own branding, which I just find so cool. And an afterword from Darwyn Cooke. And we'll also take a short look at some of the extras that are in here. And part of this is, yes, this originally appeared in solo issue number 5. Don't show this to your kids because there is some anyway. That's also a fun little short story with King Faraday and also centered around the Cuban conflict, if you will. This is the New Frontier special where they have included, at least here at the end, and bits from the animated movie. I have never watched the animated movie, but maybe I should after reading this book. I mean, how can you not with this art style? You have 3 stories here on the back that sort of flesh out a little bit of what was going on inside of the book, including a confrontation between Bruce Wayne and Kal-El, Clark Kent, whatever you would like to call him. And the resolution that, well, I mean, it's hard to be friends if you're fighting. And yeah, the scales are tipped off and different, but Wonder Woman, one of my favorite things about Diana, honestly, is the role of her as Peacemaker. There's a very difficult decision that she has to run through. And she also talks about it with Clark, or Kal-El, Superman. I don't like calling characters by their code names sometimes, but it is a very, very, very important point inside of the book that does influence character decisions later on. I'm talking specifically with the incident that happens between these two in the main storyline. The second of these 3 is a look at Dick Grayson as Robin, and also the foundation for what would eventually be the Teen Titans, of course. How can you forget them? That's actually one thing I wish was in the book more. I really, really liked the Robin cameos. I liked him sort of looking up to Superman. But I'm also like, well, him, Wally, Donna, Roy, and Garth are just so important, not only in DC lore, but they're also my favorite. They're still my favorite team over at DC. And then here at the end, we do have a differently illustrated look. It is a Black Canary and Wonder Woman story, all illustrated by David Bullock. And then added on to the end, as comprehensively as this already is with all of the extras, this is a look at the art of the line design for the animation. Absolutely ginormous to see. If you are a big animation fan, I promise you, you will not be disappointed. I need to somehow get enough money to give this to my animation professor at the community college that I went to, because his class was awesome. This book is awesome. And that, as they look into the horizon, is that. Now, if you're looking to get DC The New Frontier, you don't know where to look, please check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code NearMintCondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more.
And that is going to be it for me. If you want to see how awesome this book is, and if you want to see how awesome other books are, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you're brand new. Let me know if you're only going to get this book in deluxe and absolute. If you've liked it, disliked it, let me know down below. I am Dom of X. Please stay safe, everybody, and have a great day wherever you are.